there it is. There's so many like little drop downs for Zoom. Okay, well, I'm glad that I asked. Okay, great. Circling back around, let's start with introductions. Take it away, Tyler.
Cool. Thank you so much. So my name is Tyler. I'm a data scientist here, believe it or not. I joined the team not too long ago. I've been here only for about 2 or 3 months. Prior to that, I was a researcher at Google. And before that, I was actually at the Federal Reserve doing forecasting. So my path to data science was basically I did undergraduate economics. I ended up sort of kind of getting into some analysis, doing some forecasting, doing some econometric stuff, moving to the Federal Reserve. Doing that, realized I wanted to work with like the new fancy technologies and stuff rather than just the classic old school stuff. And yeah, that's kind of what got me into data science a little bit. So and I'm in the Bay Area, which I guess is the Twitch headquarter thing. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
And if you just want to pass it on to the next.
Sure. Popcorn, Edith.
Hi, I'm Edith. I'm a senior data scientist here at Twitch. I've been here for almost 3.5 years now. And prior to Twitch, I was at a startup called Crunchbase. My path to data science, I studied statistics in college. And then out of college, I didn't really know what exactly I wanted to do. I know I want to do something data related. And so that's why I joined a startup. And that really allowed me to kind of play around in different areas. I did all types of analytics from like sales analytics, marketing to product, and realized I like doing product data. And then I came to Twitch. And originally I was on the video platform team, which is a backend infrastructure team, doing a lot of analytics around our video quality and where to put our infrastructure. And around like almost 2 years ago, I switched to my current team, which is the health team, and we own our moderation products to keep Twitch a safe place.
Cool, I can go next. Hi everyone, I'm Svandana. I'm also a data scientist at Twitch. I've actually been at Twitch for 4 years now. My path to data science was I actually wasn't a data scientist at first. I was a web developer, actually. My undergrad was in computer science. And during my first job, when I was working as a web developer, that's actually when I discovered the world of analytics and like data tracking, et cetera. And I realized that I was more interested in that than what I was doing. So that's when I decided to like do an internship in data science. And then I went ahead and did my master's in data science. And Twitch is actually my first job out of school. So yeah, at Twitch, in the last 4 years, I've worked on at least like 4 or 5 different teams. My first team was helping third-party developers create fun apps on Twitch. But currently I'm on the community team, which is basically helping people on Twitch find their communities. So yeah, that's a little bit about how I got here.
Great, thanks everyone. I just want to say this one more time for anyone who came in late. If you have questions about the application itself, for example, what's up with the assessment, how to write an essay, what's the deadline, go ahead and either write to support at onramp.io, or you can find answers to a lot of these questions, like how many apprentices are being taken in the FAQ at the bottom of the role page. So I do recommend if you have application specific questions, please check out the OnRamp site or contact us directly. I'm going through the questions now, and I'm going to select ones that are more relevant for the team over at Twitch to answer. And we'll just kind of go through the ones that are being upvoted. So if you see one you want to hear about, please go ahead and upvote it. So it looks like a lot of people want to hear this, even though I think that I probably know the answer. They want to know whether personal use of Twitch or lack thereof would place a candidate at advantage or disadvantage for this program.
Definitely not. I actually went on Twitch like the first time the night before my on-site. So we don't not hire someone because you don't use Twitch. I think it helps to understand, how the internet works in general, and understand the space, but you don't have to be, an intense Twitch user or even a gamer to work at Twitch and have a good time.
Great, thank you. How does Twitch measure the success of their engineers?
So we're not really engineers. Is the question around specifically engineers, or do they want to know about data science?
I'm guessing it's data science.
Okay. So the success of data science is largely around impact, which what the heck is impact, right? So impact tends to be like, hey, are we helping stakeholders such as product managers and even directors or even other data scientists make meaningful discoveries, have meaningful info so they can make impactful changes to the product. By impactful, I mean like, do we actually see increases in user activity, for instance, or do we see increases in revenue, you might say? So basically, a lot of the ways that we're evaluated are on, hey, how can we plug into a team and really make a difference? Which is somewhat amorphous, but welcome to the world of data science.
Great. Sorry, I was just flipping around for the person who asked about closed captions. I was just looking for the settings, but I think they actually have to be set before the recording starts. My apologies for that. I'll keep clicking around to see if I can find it though. Okay, great. So next, another question people want to hear the answer to is, what is the most important skill, if any, an applicant or apprentice should have? And maybe asked slightly differently, because I'm seeing different versions of this question. It's like, what does a successful apprentice look like? You know, or what skills should they come in with? And like, hopefully, what are they going to come out of it with?
I can speak to skills that a data scientist should have, and then maybe Tyler or Edith can talk about like the specific apprenticeship program. So I think in terms of like skills, since this is a product company, there's like a few different things. One is, I think SQL is like our bread and butter. We use SQL every day for most things. So a little bit of knowledge in scripting would help. And the next thing is like basic statistics, I would say. So I know that all of you have taken some sort of like an assessment where you've kind of come across some of it. So basically basic statistics on like sampling methods or like hypothesis testing, et cetera, like having a basic idea would help in thinking in terms of data science to solve problems. And then I think the other thing is just basically like, it's good to have is like some product sense. I think that also comes with experience. So I wouldn't say that you would have it right off the bat, but in general, those are the things that I think would make a successful data scientist.
I want to add one more thing. I think those are all true. I think one thing that maybe is not talked about enough is communication. Being a data scientist is a job where you talk to a lot of very different stakeholders all day, every day. And there's one, technical communication, making people understand what you're doing without them knowing the math. Is very important. And two, non-technical communication. How do you get people to agree on like something you want to push forward, or like how do you get people to understand the analysis you've done? So I think like having clear communication and strong communication skills is also very important, and maybe even more important than the other skills in many ways.
Quite a few people are asking for a little bit of a day in the life. What is it like to work over at Twitch as a data scientist?
I'm happy to speak a little bit to my experience, and again, with the caveat that I've been here for about 3 months now, so a lot of this is still kind of new to me, just as far as Twitch goes, although I've been at a number of other companies. But you know, I think here a lot of it is, it's sort of a combination of you're working with these product teams, and they have maybe some immediate questions, right? And they're like, oh man, we just had this meeting, and everybody's all excited about this. We need some information on this type of thing to see if it's even worth our time, to see how many users are using this thing, to see if it's even worth it, right? So there's sort of these one-off quick kind of things that you kind of get wrapped into immediately. The other thing is more long-term research. So, it's like, hey, look, we're really interested in how users are using this platform because we want to improve it over time. So, you kind of, with that, you'll put out a plan, you'll write up a doc. As Edith mentioned, communication is key, right? So you're constantly communicating, like, what do you think will be needed? These are the questions I think I can answer. What is this going to fulfill your needs, that kind of thing. Also suggesting your own ideas, because a lot of times you're a lot closer to the data than they are. So once you kind of get some plan together, then you can actually start SQL, Python. If you need to do the math, you need to do just some basic metrics, however you like. And then finally presenting, socializing, and by socializing, it's a weird word, right? I mean, like, sort of sharing it around. Hey, does this sound good to you? What do you think about this? Is there anything I'm just missing right now? So yeah, in general, I would just say it's a combination of sort of the short-term and long-term, as well as collaborating with sort of the data infrastructure people to make sure that you have the data that you'll need for the future, as well as just sort of generally thinking about the product and strategy and chatting things over. A lot of times you'll just get hit up by your product manager or a product manager, and they'll be like, what do you think about this? Have you seen any data that supports this kind of hypothesis? And you'll just sort of jump into some meetings and be able to kind of give your 2 cents. But that's a lot of what the job is. It's a very versatile role, so there's a lot else that I'd love to hear from Spandana and Edith, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything Tyler said. Over my 4 years, I've had to broadly categorize my work. Again, it depends on context and what you're doing at that moment. But in general, I would say there's like 2 different areas. Since we're the data experts in the product team, we are working with user experience researchers, we're working with engineering teams, we're working with sometimes marketing, depending on the situation, we're working with product managers and project managers. So we're working with stakeholders and experts from different areas of the product. What we're all doing together is basically trying to solve some problem, right? And there's like 2 different areas that a data scientist works in that field. One is like product work, which is we're launching something, we want to make it an experiment, we want to answer some questions. So there's like experimentation, defining metrics, and also analyzing like impact of things. So that's where we build reports, we build dashboards, we do some basic analysis and A/B testing, etc. And then there's the research part, which is basically kind of like what Tyler said before, is like more deep dives or answering specific questions or writing papers, doing like research in a specific area. So I think broadly it's divided into these 2 parts. And yeah, stakeholders, managing stakeholders and communicating is like a major aspect of it. So that's been my experience.
All right, next, I thought this was an interesting question. Oh no, it just got flipped up. Go. I'll try to paraphrase because it just got lost when new questions came in. The question was something like, what was something that surprised you when you started your career at Twitch or as a data science, like something that you just didn't expect when you entered the field?
I mean, I can speak to this. I think for me, it was really about the communication. Like, just as Edith mentioned, you go in and you're like, oh, I know some math, I know how to program, I know how to all this, but the thing is, like, at least half of your job is communication. It's negotiation, it's communication, and it's storytelling, frankly. And I think that, frankly, was the biggest part. It's amazing how much trust they put in you to really bring everything together and tell a coherent story. And so, like, I really do think of it as half of our work.
Yeah, that's actually one of my answers too. But like a different angle for me was, like I said, I wasn't a data scientist before, so this is my first data science job. So for me, what was so surprising was making sense of the numbers. So when I say that, what I mean is, like you studied data science, you know the math, you know how the algorithms work, you know what the answers mean, you know what your p-values mean, etc. But like translating that into product language, like what does that mean? What does it mean if this is down by some percent? Like what does that really translate to, right? So for me, the biggest learning was that it is like trying to apply my math and stats to make meaningful sentences and like inferences out of it.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. And I think one extra thing too is that I didn't think about before really working in data science is dealing with data quality issues or like data exploration. Like I think when you're learning, they give you these like perfect data sets to analyze that's already cleaned up and like you should be able to draw a conclusion from it. But in reality, sometimes there's data quality issues. Sometimes like maybe you just can't find anything, or you're not looking in the right direction. So those are kind of things I had to learn on the job.
Great, thanks everyone. There's a couple versions of the same question coming up again. What does growth look like at Twitch? And what steps or methods does Twitch provide to ensure the success of new employees? So I feel like those are a little bit of the same questions as we're talking about a discrete apprenticeship period here. So what does growth, mentorship, and success look like?
Yeah, I can start here. In general, I think you as an employee kind of define your growth or how you want to develop as an employee. So for instance, you could be somebody who feels like, you know what, I want to do more product stuff and I want to be closer to the product. Or you could be somebody who wants to do hardcore research, or you could be like, you know what, I actually want to be a data engineer. So it's actually up to you how you want to grow your career path. And we have these performance reviews set up where we meet with our managers who where we define our growth plan and how we're going to achieve what we want to achieve. And I think there's like, at least in the 4 years that I've been here, like I felt like I was super supported by all of my managers in terms of how I wanted to grow as a professional and what kind of projects I wanted to do and what kind of things I wanted to learn. And there's also a lot of learning opportunities. So one thing is that all of the data scientists at Twitch come from, again, different backgrounds and lots of different areas of expertise. Although we work on different groups and products and orgs, we all have channels of communication with each other. So I feel like I learn a lot from my data science peers. And also we do learn from external sources, and like there's a lot of learning opportunities as well. So I think that's like the growth part of it. And so what was the second part?
The other part was like, like what does success look like? I mean, maybe another question is like mentorship, like how are people supported to succeed at Twitch?
Yeah, I think maybe Tyler or Edith can take that.
I think here at Twitch, like there is still a lot of areas that need a lot of data support, because historically we didn't have a ton of data scientists, and we've been really trying to hire a lot more in the past 2 years. But that means like we are still playing this catch up, and so there's a lot of areas that could use a lot of data work, and I think that's when people can really grow. If you're interested in something, you can really take up an arc of work to go dig into it, to give insight. We have a lot of very senior people in the data org, very tenured people who have been around. Even though I've been at Twitch for 3.5 years, I'm actually the least tenured person on my team. And so these people have have a lot of experience working with Twitch data and understanding how the Twitch product has changed over time, and kind of tell you like what you should be looking at, how you can grow better, things like that. And I think Twitch is a very open culture. We have like promotion cycles 3 times a year, which my understanding is that it's a lot higher than most companies in tech. And we have, performance review twice a year. And it's meant to kind of foster this conversation you have with your manager and get feedback from people you work with to understand like what you're doing well and what you can do better. And so I think the culture of just like being very open to talk about how like your performance, but not in like a bad way, it's really good for growth.
Great, thank you. This is a popular question, and I'm not sure if y'all know this yet because the program is still being built, but a lot of people want to know what kind of projects would the apprentices be working on?
So this is a great question, and it's something we are hard at work at, as alluded to. So largely, what we want to do is, and let me answer this in a roundabout way that kind of doesn't really answer this, if that's okay. So largely, what we're trying to do is come up with projects where you'll be working on some of the same areas that your mentors are. So for instance, myself, I work on sort of the search and some of the ML stuff. And so you might be working alongside me, and we have some questions about like, hey, how well are some of the recommendations helping people or something like that. So those are the and basically you'll be focusing on an area with your mentor, and with that you would basically be trying to dig into some very contained project with us for for the tenure of the apprenticeship stuff. So what we'd be trying to do is really get you a feel for what the data's like, and what dealing with stakeholders are like, and just working with the team here, kind of compacted into a small project. So for instance, one of the projects that I'm thinking of doing for mine is basically like, hey, we would like to understand better how people are searching for things, right? So are they just searching for like individual streamer names, or like are they like, what's the breadth? Are people searching for like, I just want to watch something cool today, and are we able to handle that? So looking at data on what people are searching for and stuff like that might be a way of involving yourself in there. But that's sort of the flavor and the area of project you might be working on, without saying, with the caveat being, yeah, we haven't really nailed down the exact projects yet, as things move fast and we don't know what the ideal project's going to be in a couple of months.
Thank you for that candid answer. This one's coming up a lot. What are the biggest challenges you face as a data scientist at Twitch?
I think sometimes it can be a little difficult, like when you have an experiment or a project that spans very different organizations, to get like someone to do work for you that doesn't affect them, especially if you need to implement it a certain way, and they're not in your org. So that's when it's difficult, because you're not just convincing people in your own team of why it matters. You have to go convince this whole completely different organization and their leadership of why they need to spend the time to do this work for you.
I can go next. I think one of the most challenging aspects for me were situations where you want to answer a question through data, but you can't really conduct an experiment, for instance, because that's like the ideal situation where you can get clear answers, but you can't conduct an experiment, or the data doesn't exist, or it's super noisy, and you have to figure out a way to still answer a question with confidence. That's when you have to like do a lot more cleaning, or a lot more use different methods, basically data science methods, to be able to answer some questions. And yeah, I think that's kind of more challenging, where the situation's not clean, I think, for me.
And I think just to kind of tack onto that, Twitch is operating very much kind of as a startup still, right? We're not quite a very established, we're not Amazon that has really high revenue and we're like, yeah, we're still in a very strong growth phase, and all of that. And I think that one of the big things that is challenging is simply any challenges that you operate in a startup environment. Things are not all set, as was mentioned earlier, I think by Edith. Data quality issues sometimes pop up, and you've also just got a billion different people working on different stuff, and not everything is a well-oiled machine. So it's a lot of like, oh, what are you working on something similar? Can we tack on? Is it just wasting time by trying to work together, that kind of thing? And it's a lot of, I think some of the most challenging parts are simply the gray areas. The fact that you have to operate in ambiguity, not just as far as questions go, but organizationally. And I think that's something to be prepared for in any sort of startup environment, but it's something that I think is really, really rewarding and really gives you a strong sense of self and leadership, which if we want to do a callback to the growth section, I think that's actually one of the most important things you can develop as a data scientist.
Thanks all. I usually save this question to last, but a lot of people are voting for it. So let's do it now. What's your favorite part about working for Twitch?
Swag.
Oh, sorry. Tyler can go.
I was just interjecting with free swag.
I think definitely the culture. Like, I think people have a lot of fun. People like take their work very seriously, but they don't take themselves too seriously for the most part. And I think it's a very empathetic culture that comes really from the top down. Leadership understands that we are human beings that have lives outside of work, and I think that's more and more important, especially in the last 2 years, where a lot of things are going wrong in the world. And so it's always been encouraged for us to take time off for ourselves, to step away from work if we need to. And there's a lot of flexibility in how we work, as long as we get our work done. Nothing's really like mandatory. Like, you don't have to go into the office. You don't even have to work very specific hours, as long as you can get your job done. And so, yeah, I think the empathetic leadership is really my favorite part about working at Twitch.
Yeah, I'd like to say the same thing. Like, work-life balance is really nice at Twitch. I've stayed here for 4 years, so I should know. And one thing is, I also like, apart from that, I would like to add that in general, I feel like all of my coworkers are super fun to hang out with, just in general, like to learn from or as people. We play games together. We have time outside of work where we hang out, and everyone is super helpful. As somebody who started out not having experience in data science, I was really nervous when I started out, and I didn't really know how a lot of things worked, but everybody was super helpful and took time out of their work to kind of help me. So I feel like that helpful culture, and like in general, like the people culture is really nice.
Great, thank you. People are asking what kind of software and tools they'll be using during the apprenticeship, but I think a way we can reframe that are just, what are some of the tools and technologies that you're using day to day on your teams?
SQL, certainly, that's how you get big data into smaller-ish data. If you need to do something complex, there's Python or R, which are generally the tools of the trade for this kind of work. There's a lot of other kind of like internal tools that you'll use for, you might create a table and want to save it and have it reproduced, or you may, obviously there's like Gmail for email and stuff like that. But I would say that if we're talking about the pure sort of data science-y stack, we're talking SQL, Redshift, plus Python and R, plus if you want to do for papers and stuff, we use Google Suite.
Great, thank you. There's quite a few questions coming up about people coming into data science from non-traditional background. So, how much training and support is offered for candidates with a non-traditional background? How many people on the data science team are from non-data related backgrounds? I think there was just another one too. Oh yeah, how likely is a person from a non-traditional background to be successful in this role in the application? So it sounds like there are quite a few people wondering what it's like to come into this role from a non-traditional background. So if anybody can speak to that, it seems to be a popular question.
I can give it a shot. And so, yeah, in general, I think that, well, obviously, you need some basic technical skills to actually be able to survive the job, right? So I think that's like the basic requirement. I feel like most of my data science coworkers, although they're like some of them are not really from data science background or technical background for that instance. Like there's some kind of parallel that they can connect with. For instance, like as a web developer before, you can see how product would kind of already be kind of something I thought about before, or people who come from like research background, they already know how to do research. They've already worked with stats in some way. So I think there's always like something that people come with that they already are aware of and can apply. And in general, like I said before, with my personal experience, there's always a lot of support just in general in the data science community. Like there's mentorship opportunities, and then there's in general, like folks that are super duper helpful in applying your technical skills and, you know, upping your technical skills too. But yeah, I think maybe Tyler can speak specifically to this program.
I'm happy to jump in a little bit about it. So, I mean, I think that everything that Spandana said is absolutely right. I think that, you know, there's always something, if you're a designer, you have a lot of product knowledge, you know, et cetera. I think that's all perfect. And I think it's also just a matter of like, how much are you sort of willing to learn? And as she said, we want to support you. We want to help you learn these skills so you'll have resources to do so. But like for me, for instance, like when I got into my first data science role, I had never even really taken a computer science class ever. And so like it was, you know, sort of unusual there. I taught myself how to do programming, how to do a lot of the stats that I knew how to do pen and paper, but in with you know, machines. So I think that, you know, it's a willingness to kind of embrace that. And I think that it's literally our job to, once you become an apprentice, to help you grow and help you develop these skills. And we expect that you're not going to come in with like a master's in data science from Harvard or something like this, right? If you were, you wouldn't be an apprentice. You'd get some fancy job at wherever, maybe here. But yes.
Great, thank you. I think this is kind of a fun question. Can you share a recent data science project you enjoyed working on at Twitch, with the caveat without getting into trouble?
I can talk about it. So last year, for those of you who do use Twitch, you might know that we had a hate rates problem, and we had to address that. And part of a big project I was working on prior to that happening was building out a chat mode where creators can make people in their chat verify their phone numbers before they're allowed to chat. And because of the hate rates, we had to push that feature out before we could do any kind of experimentation. And that was a feature we worked on for a long time. I did a lot of work, a lot of analysis to understand what we're going to be building. I sat in on even user research, not to ask questions, but just to understand, like, what creators are worried about, and building out the tracking, knowing that how can we track this properly. And I proposed an experiment that, because we didn't run it, we ended up needing different ways to measure what happened and whether it was helpful or not. So I ended up learning from my manager this new regression model that I've never used before, called mixed linear effects, and did an analysis a couple months later to see, for channels who did use this chat mode, like how did their engagement look like? Did it help, getting rid of hate rates? Did it tank their minutes watched like some creators were worried about? And it didn't hurt their revenue. It didn't hurt their minutes watched. So that was really good to see. And yeah, and it was cool because I learned something new, even after being here for 3 years.
Great. There's a couple questions about working remotely. Like, do you all work remotely? Do you have to go into the office? Is the culture mostly remote? What is it like working remotely? Anyone want to share their experience of working remotely and the general remote work culture at Twitch?
Yeah, I can speak about that. Yeah, so like we said before, it's very flexible. And yeah, we've been working remote since the pandemic, all of us. Yeah, it really depends on like your preference on the team. Like some people really like to come into work. Some people don't like to do that. Some people like working from home most of the week. Some people like to divide their time. So it really depends on how you want to structure your work. In general, like we definitely optimize a lot of our meeting times and everything over these last 2 years of the pandemic, just to make sure that like our heads down work time and meeting times are all optimized. I think in general, like what I found is as a problem during the pandemic and work from home situation is not being able to interact much with your coworkers outside of work. Because when you go into work, you hang out at lunch or you meet each other afterwards and you have like that kind of, you see each other and that kind of bond kind of going on. My problem was that we weren't able to do that over remote work. So there's actually been a lot of new things that we've been doing, like we do online game times afterwards, or we meet once in a while, get lunch together or something in the city. So yeah, we've been doing like a lot of things where we try to meet in person as much as possible, but just in terms of whatever's comfortable to everybody.
Great, thanks. Another couple questions that I think can be grouped together a little bit. People are asking about employee resource groups at Twitch. What is the working culture like at Twitch? What's the environment like for mental well-being and mental health? Just knowing some of these answers from other AMAs I've been in from software engineering, I think that those are maybe all going to have a similar answer.
Yeah, we have employee resource groups for a lot of different things. We have one for Asians, we have one for different ethnicities, we have one for LGBTQ employees at Twitch. We have a parents ERG, since I guess parents are minorities at startups. And I think we have recently added a veteran ERG as well. I don't know if I'm forgetting any, can add. But yeah, I think those are really places where people gather and get to know each other and do fun things. And also when people need the space for themselves, especially when they want to talk to someone who's similar to them when something bad happens outside of work. I think a lot of people have found support through ERGs as well. And so there's definitely a big ERG culture. Leadership has very openly supported ERGs, both verbally and also from a budget perspective. And so I think that's been great. Culture-wise, no, we are not all gamers. Some people do like to play games with their coworkers. Some people don't. We actually did a pottery class together last month. And so I think you would be happy if you're a gamer, but I think you also don't need to be a gamer to be happy at Twitch.
Great. A couple questions about work-life balance. Do you have it at Twitch?
I would say yes. So yeah, that's like one of the best things about Twitch for me is in general, like things are flexible. Like if you want to work certain hours and take off certain hours, like if you're a parent or in general, in any situation, you can like communicate that with your manager and like figure out a schedule. If you want to come into work more often, into the office more often or not, you can work that out as well. And also like in general, most data scientists are kind of responsible for defining their own timelines for their projects. So depending on what's coming up for you, you can define how many hours you're going to work. So yeah, I think work-life balance is really great. Like not just having time off of work to do your own personal things, but also within Twitch, there's a lot of activities like Edith was mentioning. We have a lot of guilds and groups where we do things together. We do pottery and stuff like that. So there's like life even within Twitch, I guess. And there's a very good balance for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think also inherently, like just the work that we do as data scientists is not always the most reactive. So I think we're pretty lucky from that perspective. We don't have to be on call like engineers. We don't have to work weekends like people in ops if an incident happened. And so for the most part, I think, unless there is some very big incident, then it's really all hands on deck, but those are hopefully far in between. Yeah.
Great. We've gotten a couple versions of this question. How much of your time is spent data cleaning? Does Twitch have a data engineering team that works with the data scientists to help with cleaning or availability? How much of your time is spent in EDA or data cleaning versus modeling or other ways to draw out insights? So it seems like that's a popular question.
So this is actually a really interesting one. Twitch is sort of in an evolving state in this one. So right now, we expect our data scientists to be able to do data cleaning no matter what. We do have a growing, so we've started to sort of section off our data scientists into different specialties a little bit. And so some are going to be more modeling focused and whatnot, and we do have a data engineering, we have data engineering teams. Their data engineers are scattered over. Sometimes, like in my team, they're embedded in our team actually, which is really nice. And so in that case, yes. However, figuring that balance out is still happening. And so we do get support from data engineers. And depending on which team you're in, you may get a lot of support. You may not get a lot of support. You may have to do a lot of your own data cleaning. But there are data engineers that definitely maintain all of the big data sets, the sort of quick tables that you'll want to use regularly, et cetera. Yeah, so the best answer I can kind of give you is that we're growing in the direction of specialties, but and maybe Edith or Spandana can add on to this, but it will depend a little bit on the area that you land in.
It seems like there's a little bit of a follow-up question there too. People are asking like, how is the data science department organized? Like what do the teams look like?
Again, this is a little harder question than it sounds like, because we actually just went through a reorganization not too long ago, which actually brought a lot of the data teams together. Prior to that, we were kind of separated in different areas, and now some people are still separated, but there's actually like a lot more collaboration amongst data folks. It was actually one of the reasons I decided to join Twitch. Yeah, so I think that, but then within those, you're sort of given different sort of overarching specialties. So for instance, Edith, as she mentioned, is around community health. I'm on what's called community foundations. And so basically we have sort of broad specialties, and then from there you'll work with a set of product stakeholders for product work, or you may just work across the org doing some sort of general research or something with other data scientists or whatnot. But yeah, basically we're sort of embedded into big categories, and then you're sort of assigned to work with different stakeholders, which you'll work with for a time.
And then last question about teams. This is for Edith. Can Edith talk more about her work in Twitch Health? I come from a public health background and would love to hear more about what that team entails.
Yeah, I can talk more about it. So trust and safety, or the safety space in general at Twitch, is broken down into two organizations. There's the product part, which is where I sit on. We sit under the larger community team, and we are a product engineering team and built products, one external facing ones to keep Twitch safe, and also internal facing products for our operational specialists to use to review report or review appeals, things like that. And the other half of that is the trust and safety operational team. So those are people who actually look at reports, and they have their own data team as well. They do more operational metrics such as SLAs, how valid are the reports coming in, what's like the up and coming like category that's being reported on, things like that. And so we work very closely together on a lot of things. For our team, on kind of the health team, right now we have 4 people on the data team, and we have 1 extra person joining us this summer. And I think one of the big challenges that we're trying to figure out this year is how do you really quantify harm? It's not as straightforward as a lot of other metrics. Like it's easy to look at how much money we've made, how many people are chatting, how many people watch Twitch. But how do you measure whether toxicity has gone up on Twitch this week or not? Has always been a challenge for us and something we're trying to figure out.
Thank you. The next question, a few questions that are along the same line. What does diversity mean at Twitch? And what is Twitch doing to actively ensure an inclusive and equitable work environment is either established or maintained?
Yeah, I believe we have we've worked with recruiting a lot on kind of recruiting best practices to make sure we have a diverse pool of candidates that come in and not just hire the first person we interview. I think different ERGs have definitely advocated very strongly on how to make the culture more inclusive in general. I know different ERGs will also a lot of times hear about job recs when they open and try to spread it in their own networks before we really open it up to the public. That's another way for us to reach people that we normally it's harder to reach. And I think we also sponsor a lot of different events, especially events like Grace Hopper or different, I think we also sponsor Black Girls Code, different events to attract a more diverse group of candidates to interview at Twitch. And yeah, I would say it's probably pretty team dependent how diverse the team is. So I can speak to at least health. I would say it's a pretty diverse group of people in terms of background, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of gender, and maybe it's self-selective because I work on health, but maybe Tyler and Spenda can talk more about your teams.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say like most of the teams I worked on so far have been like pretty diverse, same in terms of backgrounds, kind of work people did before or in general demographics. Yeah, I feel like during my 4 years of time, I saw Twitch kind of do a better job at hiring in general also. And once you're in Twitch also, like a lot of the employee resource group, like Edith was talking about, we have so many different diverse groups for like, communities for employees, and we keep doing cross collabs with each other. You can meet people from different groups. You can also, find your community within Twitch.
Yeah, and I believe we are actually, at least I think for tech roles in community, I don't know if it's for the whole company. I think we do have a quota that you have to bring in at least one underrepresented candidate on site before you're allowed to make an offer. And so we are trying in different ways. I think Twitch didn't start off as the most diverse company as a startup, but I think as we grow, there are a lot of people who are really passionate about this at Twitch, and leadership is definitely bought in. And so there's been a lot of work being done.
Great, thank you. I think we have time for two more questions. One question that's come up in a few different versions is about, working with other teams. Do you have an opportunity to work with teams like QA testing? Who are some of the other stakeholders that you might interact with as a data scientist? That kind of question, if someone wants to take that.
If by opportunity you mean you have to, then yes. So as we have sort of alluded to before, I think that being a data scientist here or really anywhere is about sort of being able to go to the right place for what you need, and then you sort of wear many hats. And so a lot of times you'll be dealing directly with engineers, whether it's like, hey, look, this thing isn't tracked and I need data on it, or product managers as far as actually understanding what the strategy is. Or even, as you say, QA, there's marketing people, if you're interested, hey, how is your team thinking about these types of users, things like that. You're basically free to pretty much interact with anyone that you need to understand and move forward, understand your problem and move forward with your solutions. So Yeah, I would say you deal with kind of everybody. That's kind of one of the cool parts about data science here or other places. Um, the only person you don't really talk to is the CEO very often, and you don't want to anyway. Don't worry.
Great. My last question, before I have like one other little question after that, but the last like real question is, what's one piece of advice that you would give, and this is for all three panelists, what's one piece of advice you would give to somebody who is applying to this program, you know, wants to come work at Twitch, might come through the final interview process, or even come on site to be an apprentice there?
I think don't be afraid to make mistakes. We all make mistakes and it's okay, especially at work. I've made so many terrible mistakes at Twitch before, especially when I was more junior. I've run horrible experiments in my first year at Twitch, and it's okay. I'm still here. I'm not fired. So it's, I think, especially in data jobs, it's okay to make mistakes. Actually, like when you start feeling unsure, reach out to people earlier on, ask questions, and that will help a lot rather than just trying to figure it out yourself and get into a rabbit hole. Yeah, so I think that's my advice.
Yeah, I think to add to that, like my advice would be like to be willing to learn. In general, I would say like the data science job is you're constantly learning, right? I mean, I still learn 4 years later, and I'm still doing things that are new, questioning things. One is like, yeah, be willing to learn, have a learning mindset, open-mindedness, and just ask a lot of questions, I would say. Like, I know like a lot of people know their science and stats and math, but it's still, I would still ask questions and I would still like learn from people who are already in the field.
And I'm going to sound like a complete cop-out answer because I'm basically copying the last two. But I think that the one tiny thing I wanted to add is never be afraid to say, I don't know. You, all of you folks are in a wonderful position right now where it's expected that you're still learning. You know, if I go to somebody and I'm like, I don't know about this, so like, but you guys have this wonderful opportunity where your entire job will be to learn. If you don't know something, that's great. That's what we expect. We want to teach you. So always say, hey, I don't know. Always double check. Is this what you're talking about? Oh, you use this word. What does this word mean? Like, never be afraid to say, I don't know, because everyone will be completely understanding and will want to help you learn.
Great. The last little question is, a few people have asked if they can reach out to you on LinkedIn. If you are okay with that, panelists, feel free to, I guess, just drop your LinkedIn URL in the chat box. And if you're not okay with that, that's fine too. So we're just about out of time. I know we did not have a chance to answer the many amazing questions, but hopefully participants, you received some useful information and got some of your important questions answered. I want to say thank you so much to the panelists. Thank you for spending time with us today, for answering all of these questions, and for participating in the apprenticeship program. Again, for participants, if you have any questions about the application itself, deadline, assessment, essay questions, that sort of thing, feel free to write to us at support@onramp.io. You can also check out the role page at onramp.io. There's a FAQ down at the bottom that answers a lot of the questions that I was seeing. So feel free to take a look at that. If you have any just like logistical questions about timeline, how many apprentices are going to be selected, that sort of thing. And aside from that, yeah, thank you everyone for participating. Thanks for being here. Wishing all the participants the best of luck in your application. And thanks again to the panelists. Have a great day, everyone. Appreciate your time. Bye-bye.